We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
All of your internet belong to us now.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the show! I did not curse because of our guest, but that'll probably fall through shortly. I am Brick, also known as Man-at-Arms, because I got nothing this week. I made a really bad hair product decision, and you are seeing all of it right now. So,
I get it, hair gel.
I'm thinking of what else he could possibly have in his hair right now.
Anyway, with me as always, Grindhead Jim, Grindzilla himself. Jim, say hello to the people.
Hello. Bungie loves me apparently 12,500 something when I was in Q room.
Okay then. What does that mean, Jim?
Yeah, I'm lost. What the fuck?
So
Explain
basically,
yourself.
the day as we were having server problems with the game, heard it on Twitter that the higher your queue number, the more Bungie loves you. And if there was no queue number, they couldn't possibly express how much they love you. I was trying to make something positive out of a negative, and it made me feel better. So
Fair enough. Ryan, folks, this is Ryan. Ryan, say hello to the people.
I don't have a hair problem.
Facts. Facts. God has already done all the work.
Yes.
Tonight, I've been looking forward to this for like 2 months now. With us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, you should know him. You probably do. If not, you should now. Mercules, a.k.a. Master of Math. Thank you for coming on the show, sir.
And thank you guys for having me. I'm always a joy to speak with you. I was very happy to get to finally meet you in person at Guardian Con and everything like that. So thank you for asking me to be on the show.
That was surreal for me because I genuinely live in my own bubble and I had no idea anybody knew who I was anywhere. So that was absolutely cool.
The Destiny sphere is pretty tight knit. Even people who don't know that other people know who they are, turns out they do. So I experience that every time I go to one of those conventions. But like I said, it was great to meet you. So
I should have assumed I had an underground following of people who enjoy dick and fart jokes, but
I don't even know if it's underground at this point. I think it might be well above ground. So they're pretty out in the open.
The jokes haven't changed, just the level of fandom is all.
But we're up to like 9 people. It's fine.
10.
Hey. Small progress, baby steps, bro.
Well, let's relive what we just talked about because Shadowkeep dropped and we just didn't get it out in the air. There have been connectivity issues.
Yes.
I was pretty lucky. I got 2 hours in until about 5. I took a half day of work and was streaming it before I got kicked to orbit and put. I wasn't that bad. I was like 4,000 in the queue, and I was just like, I'm gonna go have a sandwich. But Jim had no issues whatsoever because he's secretly sleeping with a dev or something. I don't know.
Well, and no, that's not true. Initially, I got in, and like right away, like as soon as it launched, boom, I was in. Got played for about 3 hours, got booted, like with everybody else, was out for about another 2 or 3 hours, and then got back in. And then as soon as I got back, I got into the tower. As soon as I got into the tower, my power went out for a minute and a half. And I had to get back in the queue, but I got right back in. And then now, as of this recording, which is 9:30 Central, or 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central on launch day, as of about 10 minutes ago, Bungie announced that all the maintenance is completed. They did some emergency maintenance and so forth, and it's pretty good. And I logged out and logged back in a few times, and I haven't had any issues getting in. So whatever it was that was wrong, they apparently were able to fix definitively. And I even played Crucible. Aside from a few little jumps here and there, which can sometimes happen in, quick play style Crucible, it was fine. It was absolutely fine. And I will say, if you are in any way not inclined to do Crucible because you feel like you're bad at it, go in over the next few days, because the people that are in Crucible right now are a lot of free-to-players, and I was getting 3.0s and 4.0s, and I was having bad games. My bad games were 3 and 4.0 KDAs. So, and that's on PS4. And maybe that's part of why, because PS4. I'll let you know what my experience is like when I get into PC. That's either going to be a pub stomp. I'm going to be throwing stuff. I don't know yet. We'll find out later tonight. I'll update you guys.
I said earlier that Blueberries received no mercy in the Crucible. Because
True story, sir. True story.
Shax would frown upon this.
I think it'll be pretty easy because all the Steam people coming in. I mean, the game going to Steam is going to bring a huge group of people who are mostly casual into PvP, especially with it going free to play and being both in the number 1 and number 2 slots on Steam's bestseller list right now. So I think it's going to be pretty easy on PC, at least for a little while, until it filters down.
Ryan got to stream for a little while. But
Yeah, I got about 2 hours in before I had to bail out and, go do real life.
I didn't accomplish a whole lot because my OCD/ADD/PCP kicked in.
Right.
Because I got to the armor system and stared at it for like 20 minutes.
Dude.
What does this mean?
Turning in token after token after token and just like, gimme. It's bad. It was real bad.
Yeah, I had like 4,000 Crucible tokens and was just turning them in.
Yep.
And before I even did anything else, I got up like 20 light levels, and then I got bored doing it. And I'd filled up every single slot in my inventory and was like, okay, I think I should probably actually go play the missions now. But yeah, Armor 2.0 has already made every drop exciting, as opposed to before where I didn't care about 90% of the stuff that I was getting.
You know what was fun today for the 2 hours that I was in was actually being interested again in blues. Checking out, reading what they do. And
That's
I mean,
where I live.
I've had the same gear set on for 3 months. It was nice to have something unique. You go, what the hell is this?
Right. The only thing about Armor 2.0 so far I'm remotely disappointed by, and this is a really upfront, this is first world problem thing. So I admit this. I'm a little upset by how few universal ornaments there are, because right now all it is the Eververse stuff. Granted, that's all we were ever really promised, but I was secretly hoping that some other armor sets you'd be able to swap them out. That did not happen. I was secretly hoping that the Iron Banner ornaments would be and it is what it is. But other than that, I think the system is cool. I'm going to have to start paying way closer attention, like you guys are saying. It's a good system. It's just good stuff.
I'm curious if you got your hands on this before you were done at Bungie. Did you see any of this coming down the pipe, or was this implemented after you were done?
The armor system was talked about, but was not yet something that was testable in game. The story and the location were being worked on at the time. So I knew what the next step was going to be. I didn't necessarily know the timetables when, if that makes sense. So I left right before Forsaken dropped. And so everything that I had seen in game to that point, like Black Armory stuff, was already in game. But it wasn't obviously anywhere near like ready to go. It was just being play tested. And then they had started storyboarding out Joker's Wild, which ended up becoming Season of the Drifter, and Penumbra, which ended up becoming Season of Opulence. So they had storyboarded out those things. And then they had kind of, if there's a step before storyboarding, it would be what now is called Shadowkeep was. But they knew that they were going to do the moon. And they were talking about ways to make armor different. And this was one of the ideas that was batted around, but they had not selected this idea yet, so to speak. So if it gives you the idea of the time frames that these dudes are working on,
Now I'm trying to do the mental math. How long ago was that?
It was slightly more than a year ago exactly. They were still deciding which way they wanted to go with armor and stuff like that.
Well, I
so
sorry.
Yeah, in less than a year, basically, they knocked this system together, which is, in my opinion, extremely impressive.
Well, I was gonna say, I remember like a year ago, you threw up something on Reddit where it showed, like, basically to cool everybody out about how games actually work and how you can make changes. And of course, it's like in Excel spreadsheet form. It's like, okay, the concept is here, then there's the build, then there's the test and release. And then during release, you have the guys testing the stuff, these guys, and it just showed how it staggers.
Hey,
Rick, it's like, okay, if you want to change something you released, but...
Rick, before we go a deep dive on this, why don't we let him explain exactly what he did do for Bungie for people that don't know him from his podcasts?
Yeah, so I was a gameplay specialist at Bungie, which means I basically went out there and I tried to bridge the gap between how the developers play and how actual players play. So we would basically play the game, whatever the most recent build was, for like 6 hours a day. And then we would sit in meetings with the leadership team or whatever team we were working with their stuff for like 2 hours. And we would basically say, hey, this is how we played it. This is stuff we didn't like. This is stuff we did like. And we did everything. So for example, I played the Forsaken campaign through 25 times from start to finish. I played the entire campaign through locked at 30 levels under the campaign the entire time to see what the experience was like, massively underleveled. I played it at level. I played it 30 levels over. I played it with every single Baron at the same light level, and like just a whole, basically every single possible way you could try to play the campaign through. We played it with XP being really stingy, with XP being really generous, with stuff giving tons of glimmer, with stuff giving not that much glimmer. And for example, like the last couple weeks that I was there, we pretty much played for 10 to 14 hours a day, just for 2 weeks straight, 10 to 14 hours a day. And the experience was supposed to be like, this is what the top 1%, the hardcore players are going to be playing when it comes out. Tell us how it feels. And so we did. And it was honestly tons of fun. We got to give a lot of really good feedback. I mean, you know, we had our fingers in stuff that dramatically affected the game as a whole, like things like infusion and stuff like that. And it was just really, really fun, honestly. I mean, who wouldn't love to play Destiny for, you know, a full-time job and get paid to do it?
Anthem players? I don't know.
Well, yeah. There's some of those left.
Wow.
I didn't know. Yeah.
No, there are none of those left. There was one dude and they banned him. He had too much loot.
Yeah. We were all told that was going to be the Destiny killer, right? Anthem was going to kill Destiny, just like Division killed Destiny, and just like Borderlands 3 was going to kill Destiny. But we all know that the only thing that could actually kill Destiny is Destiny.
True story, sir.
Activision sure tried, though, it seems like.
Oh, yeah.
They did a really good job.
They didn't
for a period of time.
succeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just uninstalled Anthem from my PC for this week.
I can't believe you waited that long.
I needed the room for the goddamn download on Steam.
Anyone else have a near perverse pleasure uninstalling Destiny from the Blizzard app?
That was so fun last night. Oh my god.
Because I was just like, goodbye, click. It's so good.
I don't know that Rick had it.
Nah, man, the only thing I ever had on Blizzard was Warcraft, and we're about a decade past that.
You're better off, sir. Better off. Clunky launcher. I'll stop there.
I get to figure out Steam tomorrow. That's gonna be an adventure. Just
It's not too bad. It really
dude,
is.
I'm a caveman. Stop.
I'm bearing that in mind when I make that assessment, Rick. Bad.
Tomorrow he might have to learn how to install an SSD into his computer also. Because there should be one in the mail showing up.
That'll be hard.
Is it anything like an alternator?
It's easier than an alternator.
If
For
not, I'm gonna have to YouTube it.
Fun.
it's really not too bad.
Anyway, well, okay. Where are we going with this? I have no idea anymore.
Now you can go back to what I
Straight to
interrupted
hell.
you for.
Fuck off. I've grown past this.
And there went the
My
cursing
deepest
ban.
apologies to our guest.
Oh shit! It was going with the previous conversation we were already having, but you completely shadowed over that. So let's move on. All right. So we all got a little bit of time in. You got to play Crucible, so I want to hear about that at some point. Not to the depth to which you were already talking about it, because it's only like an hour and 20-minute show. But when you jumped in, what was like the first thing that just like really blew you away? With no spoilers, no story spoilers. We're just talking fighting encounters, no plot line stuff, for at least for this week, if you don't mind.
You're asking, you asking what?
Yeah, I'm curious if you
I
were
thought
asking
you-
Crucible
I thought you
or...
said Crucible. Yeah, what story of the Crucible? Or both?
How about we...
What was the
do you
first thing
want?
that just blew you away?
First thing that blew me away,
Ferg is going
the
nuts
UI.
and
I
chatting.
nerded out about the Fergus. Thank you, buddy. Honestly, the UI. It's smoother. It loads faster overall. There's a lot of stuff to do. The Triumph screen was overwhelming because they've changed how Triumphs work now, where it's incremental. So some stuff you've already finished, you got to do again. You got some points back. So like if you have a bunch of stuff completed that they changed, you have to go back and redo them. So that took me like 10 minutes. Just a lot more information in a compressed space, but it's still easy to read. But play-wise, once we got to the moon, that place way bigger than it was.
Did you get the butterflies from D1?
Definitely the nostalgia.
Okay, if you want to use that, if D1 were butterflies, I had a herd of Mothra in my stomach. That's what happened. It was a lot of fun to be there. It felt scary again because you're dealing with higher level characters, mechanics you don't know yet. It all the best kinds of overwhelming for sure. And remember yelling at my teammate because we just were two-manning everything, and I said, "I don't think we're gonna live through this." Because I don't either. And things happened, and technically we lived through it. But I'm glad that things turned out the way they did because I was about to poopy my pants at that time. It was not fun times in that portion of the moon in that moment at all.
Well, Mark, you got to play what, about an hour total, give or take?
But yeah, I got into the tower. I got to stare at Armor 2.0, same as you were, just be mesmerized basically with all the stats that we have now, all the options, and then mission, which was phenomenal. Honestly, it was really, really great. And I got to do like a couple patrols on the moon, and I tried to do the strike. And as soon as I tried to do the strike, I got booted. I didn't even load into it. So that was my experience. And then I sat for about 3 hours in queue, but it was still fun the time that I was playing.
I want to ask you this because, all right, so if you're listening to this and you're not really familiar with Mark, he does the massive Destiny breakdowns, Mercules massive breakdowns, which it's a ton of math. It's all in Excel form, but I'll ask you about that. Just how much time does that take? I know it's set up now to where it's like I'm sure it's kind of plug and play, but the amount of time it took you to originally create this Excel program to figure out every weapon and time to kill, and dude, I look at you and you're like the Stephen Hawking of fucking Destiny, to be honest with you, because I'm just like,
Wow,
what?
so he's dead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll take that as like a 50-50 compliment, and that he's smart but dead. But yeah, I mean, originally it took a ridiculous amount of time. It was actually awful, but it was because originally I was doing everything manually, and I had to figure out the formulas for time to kill, which isn't that hard by itself. But for certain things that have weird perks that function differently, like sweet business and stuff like that, or even pulse rifles are hard to figure out a time to kill. Like the thing that happened was I used to use XX Trooper, was the guy who made the original time to kill spreadsheet. And I used to use his like religiously to figure out guns that were not meta but could kill really fast. And then I would like play with those guns because I thought that was the most fun way to do it. And then he kind of moved away from the game and stopped doing it and stopped updating it, and I couldn't rely on it anymore. So I figured I'd make my own. And when I started to make my own, I realized that some of his numbers were not accurate because the formulas he used were wrong. And then that's when it got bad. Like I had to go back into everything, and I had to start recording footage of every single gun in the game, and then counting the frames in between each bullet that would fire to make sure that the rate of fires were correct, because it turned out that the rate of fires listed in game were incorrect for a lot of the weapons, or they were just like straight made up. And so that ended up taking a really long time. But now I've obviously got all the formulas down, and I just plug the damage numbers in, and it updates everything automatically, which is really, really nice. So now it's a lot less difficult, but like tomorrow I'm going to spend probably 4 or 5 hours going through the API and looking at every single new weapon that's been put into the game and like pulling all their stats. And then I put their stats into one huge spreadsheet that basically color codes which stats are good and which stats aren't. And that's where I base my recommendations off of. But unfortunately, I don't have the time to like write 4,000 word articles like I used to. Because I used to have a job that I only did for 2 hours a day, and then they basically paid me to sit there for 6 hours and write Destiny articles. And unfortunately, in my job, they realized that was happening, and now they have given me a lot more responsibility. So now I'm lucky that I can just update the spreadsheet and keep doing the podcast. But I know that a lot of people use the spreadsheet and figure stuff out on their own and write stuff on their own. So I'm happy that I can just continue to at least maintain it.
Well,
With the recent
oh, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
With the recent change to damage numbers in PvE, as far as how like basically the way it's calculated in game, because the user end damage is the same, and it's the same on the other end. It's just the way it's visually represented in game with the numbers has changed. I'm sure you saw that in the patch notes. Or do you think you're going to be able to just kind of recalculate the numbers, or like without going into detail, because we don't need to know your calculations or whatnot, but is that going to be a huge for you? Is that going to be a problem? Because at the end of the day, the base numbers you're looking at in terms of TTK and effectiveness relatively should be the same, even though in game they're visually being represented different. Do you see that being a difficulty for you?
No, because all people really care about is what kills the fastest and what that time is, right? Like the actual damage numbers are not irrelevant, but all they do is factor into the formula of figuring out how long it takes to kill something, right? Like if doing 200 damage kills a dragon one headshot, and doing 60 damage kills a dragon one headshot. It doesn't actually matter how much damage is being displayed. It matters that it's killing a dragon one headshot, right? So like that's the type of thing that people are looking at. They're looking at how many shots it takes to kill a red bar enemy, because the more shots you have to take, obviously, not necessarily the longer it takes, because you could have a fast rate of fire gun, but the more opportunity for a miss there is. Which is why a lot of times you'll see like high level raiders will take high impact hand cannons when they're going in under level, because a high impact hand cannon, even though it has a slow rate of fire, is more likely to kill something that is over leveled in one headshot. But as soon as they move to the level where
who really like, for someone who, because the idea here is to introduce you to people that don't know what you do. So I think it'd be, would you say it's fair to say that you're less about DPS and more about time to kill? Those are very similar. TTK being more of a raw, like, here's the most efficient weapon for this kind of enemy, etc. Like, would you say that's more accurate? Because DPS seems like that'd be more of that numbers game.
Yeah, DPS I don't like to deal with on my end. Number one, there's a lot of people out there who do really good DPS charts on their own. I don't feel like there's a space that needs my help, basically. But the reason I look at TTK is because there aren't a lot of people who do TTK well. And specifically because it easily translates over to PvP, which is what I actually play by far the most. I have almost 100,000 PvP kills already in D2. And I had easily that much more in D1, right? So I'm much more of a PvP player. And it's just very, very easy to translate time to kill to PvP or PvE like red bars. DPS, I thought there may have been something for me to do there, but then they took away automatic reloading. And if I'm being honest, I want nothing to do with figuring out all the different reload times and the variables that go into that. So I'm going to leave that up to some other people who are willing to sit there and frame count every single reload time on every single archetype of weapon and then make a chart for it, because that is not me at this point in time.
Fair enough, man.
Yeah.
Get the answer.
Ricky, you're muted.
Hi!
Welcome back to the show, Rick.
I was doing things on this side you didn't need to hear this time. No, what I was saying is when Ryan and I initially started the show, this was supposed to be for the mass of Destiny players and not the top 1%ers. And I've indirectly shared stuff from the Massive Breakdown while just speaking on the show. So if you're an average player, having the weapon that kills the fastest, when you look at Mercules' chart, may not be the best gun for you. Because if you miss one headshot, you can look at the chart. It's very simple. It's like blue, yellow, green, red. Red is bad. But so if you miss one precision shot, then your time to kill goes all the way out of whack, because now you're into body shot time. So even though it might kill something in 0.87 seconds, you miss that one headshot. Now you might have a time to kill of 1.2 seconds. So me being of average skill level, I always look at it, it's like, okay, what's a good balance to where if I land all of my shots, or if I miss a few and I land body shots? And generally I can pick a weapon out of or a set of weapons, because they're grouped. And it's like, okay, so in this archetype of pulse rifle, for example, if I miss my precision shots, I still have or I might have the best body shot time to kill in this particular weapon archetype. So it's more of a forgiving weapon. So it's not just for people who are sweats who want to go and it's like, okay, what smokes everything? Well, the thing that smokes everything the fastest is the weapon that you can't miss. Because if you miss some of these, the game is balanced. Some of the guns that kill the quickest in PvP, if you miss, are now brutal times to kill. And it's interesting when you just look at the chart, because everything's laid out, because it shows you, it's like, okay, well, these are for the most skilled players. I'm not one of those. I probably shouldn't use this. So that's how I've always used the Massive Breakdown as a guide. It's just like what's that Feist thing that the Valkadon or the Valakaden auto rifle. You don't ever want to shoot somebody in the head with that gun. It's like, if you hit it, it's great, but if you just body shot somebody to death, that's fine, and you're still in a competitive time to kill in it. But you can just kind of do it in your head, and it's like, okay, so if I'm bringing this into PvE, This is something that's going to do a lot of damage over a long period of time without having to do the actual math. So, anyway.
Yeah,
just
and
threw
I
that
actually put a column into the spreadsheet that's called accuracy adjusted time to kill, and basically you can choose what you think your precision accuracy is, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, or 90, and it will actually show you the weapons that kill the fastest with a crit percentage below that amount, right? So if you look at a gun and you're like, oh, that gun kills really fast, but it also takes 100% crit accuracy, and you know that there's no way that you're going to hit 100% crits with an SMG, right? You can use this drop down and change your accuracy to like 60%, and then it will show you what the time to kill is if you were to hit that amount of crits, right? 60% of your crits. So originally I started making this stuff for really high level players on Crucible Playbook. And what I found is that they're the top 1%, and it doesn't help 99% of players to show which gun is the best with 100% accuracy. And that most players were finding it interesting, but not really useful to them. So I kind of tried to change the way I did my breakdowns and the way I demonstrated stuff to be more useful to the average player, and to say, hey, even if you don't get 100% accuracy, yeah, that gun's pretty great, but here's a gun that's pretty close to it that doesn't require nearly as much, right? And we see that in game with people using bygones and stuff, right? Like bygones doesn't require 100% accuracy. It only really requires, like 70% accuracy, which is pretty easy to hit, and it's got a pretty decent time to kill as far as it goes. So bygones is a really popular gun. And it's always about, this is something the sandbox team has had a lot of trouble with in the past, balancing. But if you make something kill really fast and also pretty easy to use, like Thorn was in D1 and like Last Word was in D1, you end up with a gun that every single person uses. And that becomes the meta.
I still have PTSD from Thorn.
Yeah, it was...
Still wake up with that green flashing on the...
Yeah. But realistically, we're probably going to see that with
bad.
Ariana's Vow and Shadowkeep. I think Ariana's Vow is going to be that level of like super easy to use and really, really strong.
I didn't see it once in there today.
Give it time. Give it time, because we were taking it in there, and with stuff like Empowering Rift, you can one-shot people. You can kill with 2 body shots. Yeah, it's
Let me get a piece
as soon
of
as people
paper.
start,
What was that gun again?
Oh,
yeah,
God,
it's
Telling
special ammo
Damn
hand
it.
cannon.
Warlock.
Yeah, as soon as people figure out how good Ariana's Vow is, you're gonna probably start seeing a lot more of it. So,
I mean, I was spitting my coffee out the first few times I shot it. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. It's pretty. It's
brutal.
beefy. It's beefy.
It's just so
yeah.
brutal.
It's crazy if you can land the shots. I
I
know
fired
that I'm
one
probably
shot and I went, I need to bring this into Crucible immediately. I
yeah,
didn't have
and
time
I
to,
thought
but I'm
for
like,
sure.
I can make this work, bro.
yeah, you'll
I
definitely be able
hopped
to make
in.
it
I
work.
thought for sure. I thought that's all I was going to come up against for control matches. I thought it was going to be nothing but that, because it's if you paid for the DLC, I mean, you get it like within an hour,
Yep.
and I thought for sure people were just going to be popping my head off. And nope. Lucky. I don't know how long that's going to last.
All those
Cherish
free-to-play
it while I
players are gotta wait till
Right.
level 25 or whatever it is.
Right. And with skill-based matchmaking being a thing now, I think it'll be like a week or two before that stuff starts to even out a bit. Get while the getting's good if you want to feel like, a PvP guy, guys and girls, I'm telling you, because it's going to start getting sweaty in about a week or so. It's going to get crazy in a good way, but,
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm really disappointed I haven't gotten Monte Carlo back yet because reasons.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one.
I literally didn't take it off during D1 toward the end because why?
I saw conversations going on Twitter and in some of the Facebook groups and that auto rifles were going to be making a return this time. Is that track, or does it seem like auto rifles are not really what the hype was?
Pull your sand wasp out.
Yeah, in PvE, they're going to be a little bit better. I mean, I took some out in the brief time I got to play, and they felt stronger than they did in the past, is what I will say, right? Because, like, the precision nerf to red bars didn't hurt as much on auto rifles because they're not really precision weapons.
You can put duct tape on a fly swatter and it feels stronger. I mean,
Yeah, and that's, I think, realistically what they've done. I don't think they're going to be like, people are going to say, oh my God, I've got to use an auto rifle in PvE if I want to be competitive. I don't think that's the way it's going to work. I think with the change to hand cannon animations, especially on console, you're going to see a lot more people using hand cannons. I was using one myself. I used a scout rifle, a pulse rifle, a hand cannon, an auto rifle, and I thought hand cannons felt by far the best out of the bunch.
yeah, forgive me because I don't play on console anymore. Is it better on console now than it used to be?
Yes, it is much, much better. Before it felt like, and this is what actually was happening, but it felt like the gun was, it felt like you could fire it again, and you would pull the trigger and the bullet would just go like wildly off course. And it, they said in the patch notes, yeah, they said in the patch notes it was because of the animation. Despite it looking like it was reset, the actual animation itself was not reset. If you want an example of that, it's like how if you sprint cancel a reload and then you try to pull the trigger, you still can't fire because the reload is still actually playing in the background. You just stopped the actual animation from happening, and that's kind of what the recoil was doing. So the actual recoil was still happening in the background, but the animation had settled down first. So they've matched up the background, recoil to what the animation looks like. It's a lot smoother. I was, for the first time, like, wow, I can hit things with a hand cannon that's not Ace of Spades. And I haven't been like that since basically D2 started, so.
I'm one of those people who apparently made themselves good with hand cannons on console through sheer force of will and stupidity. I have no explanation for this. I mean, immediately I was just like, okay, okay, short story. So I got in early and I couldn't get into the tower and I couldn't use any third-party apps. So I basically had my PvP loadout. So I was like, okay, do I use Trust or do I use this Bygones? Let's go with Trust for a little while. I literally feel like I can't miss right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what I read the article about the animation. I'm using a 180, but it's like like you were saying, Ariana's vow. I'm like, I can't miss. I'm in the air, gliding sideways, and plack. It was just like, yeah, things are gonna improve for me substantially.
Yeah.
And if
you already
better
like
on PC next week, might achieve godhood, but I doubt it. But
if you already liked hand cannons, you're gonna really love hand cannons now. But yeah, I didn't like hand cannons much before. I don't really like when a game says, oh, you can fire again, the gun's ready to fire, and then you actually can't fire again because it's not. And that's why I never liked Bloom and Halo Reach either. If you guys remember how they added that to the DMR, and it was extraordinarily infuriating to deal with because you were better off just spamming than you were waiting for the Bloom to reset, which I think is a poor mechanic. Which, by the way, I actually argued with Josh Hamrick about that when I was at Bungie. Like the first week I was out there, he was the one who was like the person behind Bloom and also the person behind Armor Lock in Halo Reach. And so we went out to lunch the first week and had a very heartfelt argument about how that made Halo Reach not as good of a game as it could have been. So that was fun.
Shots fired, just saying.
I have a button in my head right now that says be a dick or don't be a dick.
And now we know why you no longer work at Bungie.
Yeah. Actually, that was my choice, but yeah. And also, Hamrick no longer works at Bungie, so.
No. And I can't keep him from showing up in my Twitter feed, and I don't even follow him. But
yeah, no.
I got issues with him, but that's fine. We buried the hatchet.
In his bag?
Yeah. He was a great guy to work with. I really liked him, but yeah, he made some decisions for a couple of the games that I really disagreed with. And the wonderful thing about working out there was you can totally have a disagreement with someone, internally, and they kind of even welcome that dissenting opinion. as long as it is appropriately portrayed and not screaming, yelling at someone the way Twitter tends to do when someone doesn't agree with what they say.
Oh, weird that would be considered professionalism in an environment like that. I thought for sure you'd be yelling hashtags across the studio, flinging poo at each other. You're telling me it doesn't work that way in real life? Surely you jest, Merc.
Nope. I tried that the first day I was there, and they said this is not how we do it here.
Okay. So I have a question, and I don't know if you have an answer for this or not. But we're talking strictly about mechanics. So let's use hand cannon bloom, for example. We're generalizing it. We're not talking about bloom specifically. So there's something in the game like hand cannon bloom that a vast majority of people do not like. Players don't like. They're very verbal. Everyone knows that we don't like it. I guess what is the thought process when weeks and weeks and months go by and we make all these changes? And
how is it still there?
Yeah, it's like...
Or why?
No, it's like... It's not even that it's still there, but it's like... Can we get an answer why it's there? Can you explain it to us? It's like, because it's something that's universally despised by console players who like using hand cannons. It's like... And when PC didn't get the same mechanic, and it was just like, okay, this is shit. Being just quite frank about it, it's like, I don't know where I was going with this. Maybe I'm just ranting.
I mean, it makes sense. It's something I asked them when I was there. But the fact of the matter is that PC was a port made by a different company,
right?
And they had control over not the numerical balancing, but the feel balancing, right? And so they did what they thought felt good for the PC port, and that was what we got. Right? Guns were very, very accurate. There was almost no recoil, and it played like a PC game. So the reason why it was so different on that is because originally it was made by Vicarious Visions, not by Bungie. It was Bungie's game that was ported, right? And Vicarious Visions had full autonomy to make the game feel the way they thought it was appropriate for it to feel on PC.
Is a port the correct term? Because the word that they were kicking around, or the term they were kicking around, was rebuilt from the ground up.
It is. It's a different engine. I mean, it's a completely different game. There's a reason why crossplay isn't a thing, and it's because the PC version of Destiny is a different game than the console version of Destiny.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so it was no trivial matter.
That's what they were saying before launch, was it wasn't a port as much as it was built from the ground up by Vicarious Visions.
Yeah.
I remember that being kicked around somewhere.
Yeah, I use port just because most people don't care about the actual details of it, but yeah, it's running basically on a different engine, and it's a different game.
I'm a nerd,
fully and completely. So no worries.
Feels like what might have to happen for next gen, if they're going to like retool it for higher frame rates, would be to take the PC build and the engine, move that over to next gen, so that there's your frame rate, and then that keeps all the engines congruent, and then moving forward, because the architecture is the same. Then at that point, I think it would be easier to keep pushing that engine forward as opposed to what's in there.
You guys are going to have to indulge
I don't know. I'm just
one really nerd question that he may not be able to answer. With the separation from Activision, and obviously Vicarious Visions having done the rebuild or the port or whatever you want to call it, and now moving forward, Vicarious Visions is no longer in the mix. Who is handling the PC side of the game? Do you know that answer? Is it Bungie doing it in-house now? And then going forward, would they be the ones continuing? Like if, say, a D3 were to come along, would it now be Bungie's in-house? Or is there a chance Vicarious Visions might be brought back into the fold, or another studio brought in?
Vicarious Visions is owned by Activision, so the chances of them coming back in are almost zero. They're like High Moon. So I guess I shouldn't say owned, but they're like High Moon Studios. They're a contract studio that runs through Activision. So when Activision wants things built, they're like what Sledgehammer used to be. Mm-hmm. When Activision wants things built, they contract it out to VV or HMS, and they say, hey, we need a multiplayer for this game, or we need 3 multiplayer maps and a campaign for this game. And then VV built it. Right, so the chances of VV coming back to help Bungie, and this is not insider knowledge, this is just from what I know of the situation, I would think are pretty slim, unless Bungie goes around, Activision and reaches out outside.
Is that relationship so spoiled between Bungie and Activision that they couldn't get a deal done? Is this, or is it like Disney and Sony with Spider-Man? Like, yeah, we can still work together on occasion, but it might cost you a little more.
No, I would just think the VV is going to be tied up with Activision stuff. I don't think VV is sitting there idle, waiting for Bungie to come back and be like, hey, we want you guys to do some stuff for us. I think the second that Bungie pulled out, Activision said, okay, can you build us 6 COD maps and, can you help us work on the multiplayer of the next COD or something like that? Like, I don't think they're just sitting there idle. I think that Activision utilizes them as they see fit,
So read somewhere like some of the cats that worked on the PC version, some of those guys actually are at Bungie, and so forth. So I think that Bungie didn't make this decision lightly by all, and I think that they knew that they were going to have to handle this stuff in house, and they were in a position to grab the right people. That's why I think you saw a lot of turnaround on personnel in there, because they had to restructure up to be able to handle all of this under that one roof. Now, and question, are they going to maybe need to get some more people in that specialize in that than they do now? Maybe. We don't know with the structure that they've got, but
they've got some pretty smart people. So
yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it. The reason they needed VV in the beginning was because of the schedule,
the enormous task it was.
Yeah, that was granted to them by Activision, by the publisher, right? So we already saw the fruits of the split just with Shadowkeep, where they said, look, we got to push it back. We don't think it's going to be ready to go in early September. We're going to push it back to early October. And the community universally pretty much rejoiced, because as players who love the game, we would much rather see it come out a couple of weeks later and be better than come out a couple weeks early and be, have a lot of blocking bugs and not be great. That was something that they were not able to do when you also have to please Activision's shareholders and you have to fit into their quarterly reports. And Activision expects a certain amount of revenue from the game in a certain window of time. And if you're pushing the game back, you can't make that happen, right? So the reason that they needed those other studios was not so much because of the amount of content, but because of the schedule the content was being forced out on, and the schedule of when the release had to happen, right? Like, if we weren't going to get Destiny 3, if we even still are going to get Destiny 3, but if we weren't going to get Destiny 3 next year, it would be Bungie's decision. But if Activision were here, you can damn well bet we'd get Destiny 3 next year, regardless of what state it was in, right? Like, they'd slap a number on the box and they'd sell it for $59.99 with $39.99 annual pass, and it doesn't matter if it's and it doesn't matter if it's ready to go or not, because they were banking on having $500 million or $1 billion come in their Q3 of 2020, right? Like, that doesn't have to happen anymore.
Okay, nerd question over.
I don't know how to follow that up. I mean,
well,
not
no.
what I do.
Well, let me follow.
I'm more of a body man, bro. I mean,
where do you play, Merc? Where are you, console and PC? Are you PC? Where do you normally play at?
I am an Xbox main, and I have been, I played Halo. I mean, that's what I came from. I bought an Xbox to play Halo 2. Then Halo 3 and Halo Reach and ODST and everything. So I just stuck with Xbox when I made the jump up. And then as soon as Sony made the deal for exclusives, it basically cemented that I would never play on PS4, because I can't stand those type of agreements. So I just stuck on Xbox. And now I also have it on Steam. I bought Shadowkeep for Steam as well, so I play on PC. Because some of my friends migrated over. But honestly, I just love the comfort of playing from my couch with a controller in my hands, and it's so Xbox main.
So is it true you never played on PC before Shadowkeep?
I mean, I played on PC at Bungie because all the builds out there were on PC.
Because reasons.
So, yeah.
Right.
So and development's
So
just easier.
I was secretly hoping it hadn't happened because I do think that the feel of PC, even with a controller,
Yeah, it's different.
that little crank up there, that it just everything's just a little bit smoother, and I'm not just talking about frame rate. It feels more like the Guardian's doing more of what you're telling it to do, whereas console there's sometimes feels like there's a rope holding you back. Sometimes it's weird. It's hard to describe. And I know there are
Field of
mechanics
view.
behind that.
Field
Field
of
of
view.
view
Yeah, it's a big part
has
of
a
it.
thing, has a big part of it. Frame rate has actually a much bigger part of it than you would think because of how quickly something can respond. Like the human mind is capable of recognizing when you press a button and there's a 1/30th of a second delay because you pressed it right before a frame could happen or right after a frame happened, and then it has to wait to display the change to you, right? Whereas if you're running at 240 frames per second, you don't ever have to wait for anything. As soon as you
Right.
touch something, it feels like it's instant activation. And it was very, very obvious coming from work and playing at 180 frames a second on a PC, going back to my Xbox and playing at 30 frames a second or lower, depending on what I was doing.
It's
Like it
rough.
was
It's
really,
rough.
really obvious. But I don't know. I like sitting in front of my 48-inch TV and sitting on the couch and having a snack and just playing very, very casually, right? And I also find the competition on Xbox, PvP wise, like to be not as steep as PC. I feel like the PC players who are good are extremely, extremely good. Like I'm pretty good at the game, and when I play console.
Oh God, no.
He froze up. Uh-oh.
No. God,
Everyone else
why?
freeze.
See, this is what happens when you
Everyone
talk
else
bad
freeze
about
and
PC.
match him. Everyone else freeze and match him.
Oh, there he's back.
Oh, okay, he's back. That's fine. Crisis averted.
Okay.
I just started streaming. No, she just got home. But
This is fine. We've had much worse catastrophes. It's fine.
This is
I'll
true.
hang around at least to the end. But yeah, I just find the players on PC are like really, really good at a high level.
Yeah.
I see people do stuff on PC that I'm literally like, oh my God, I cannot believe that person just did that.
Because we have the best cheating bots on PC.
Or it may be that mouse and keyboard is just that much superior of an input device than controller is.
I don't agree with, and I'm a PC builder, and I don't agree with that. I feel like if you're good with whatever your tool is, you're good with that tool, and it's just whatever you're most comfortable with. I feel like it's more. Really?
Yeah. I mean, there are some
I'm glad
things
Rick
that
said
PC
really.
players can do.
Ryan, Jesus Christ.
Dude, have you seen Siege with mouse and keyboard? Have you lost your fucking mind?
And I guarantee you that same cat, if he's good and you put that controller in his hand, he's going to be just as good with it.
Well, there's just certain limitations of a controller, though, right? Like a controller has aim assist, which is really, really nice. But if you are really good with a mouse and keyboard, you don't need the aim assist, which
Right.
is pretty much the point. Controller can never get the turn speed, the
Right.
mouse and keyboard, or the quick snap accuracy, and that's the stuff that I see on PC that I'm like, I could literally never do that. Like I play on 10 sensitivity on console. So I can snap turn pretty quickly, but I will be shooting someone in the back on PC and it will seem like lightning turn and just dome me with a sniper. And I'm like, that would actually be impossible on console.
I'm not arguing that there are differences, but I feel like if you get used to doing it in a certain way, you learn to play that play style. It's not a disadvantage. You've learned how to overcome it.
I think that if you were to take the best controller player in the world and match them versus the best mouse and keyboard player in the world, there would still be a pretty substantial difference in terms of what the mouse and keyboard player can do versus a controller player.
Right.
I'm not saying that you can't be extraordinarily good with a controller in a mouse and keyboard environment, because obviously there are players out there who are. Like Drewski is an example of someone who's really, really phenomenal with a controller and can be competitive at the highest level in Destiny, right? But there are still things he literally cannot do.
Sure, but he has learned through that game that I can't do this, so I overcome it by doing something else.
Yeah, I still think that there's a pretty distinct disadvantage. I mean, I'm not saying you can't overcome it, and I'm not saying through hard work, but I think Drewski would be a better player if he swapped over to mouse and keyboard and got really good at it than he could be on console or on controller. But it's just an opinion based thing. I mean, I've made the choice to basically not try to play high level on PC.
We
for-
can have
for
this
a
this
number of
argument
reasons,
till
but
Rick walks away.
I'm still dumbfounded that he plays on 10 sensitivity.
Yeah, man, inverted 10 sensitivity jumper.
And
Turn it
Xbox.
back to yeah. That's the way to do it, man. Well, see, the thing is, when you fly airplanes, if you pull back on the stick in an airplane, you go up, right? So to me, it only makes sense on a console to pull back on the stick to look up. And it wasn't until I started talking to other people that I realized that that's not, that everybody else says you push forward to go up. And I never realized that that was the way that was supposed to work. So I played inverted my entire life and thought that that was the normal way to play.
I played a lot of flight sims as a
actually
kid,
did
and
get
for a
that.
long time I felt that way. But somewhere around like Xbox 360, I stopped doing it. I don't remember what
Yeah,
game
same.
it was. It might have been Modern Warfare.
Probably
I don't
Halo.
remember.
It was probably a default setting in your box that you never changed, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm just used to this now.
No, but I get what they say, because we played, I mean, flight sims were a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially when, like, multiplayer games were first kind of being created on PC. Like, you played, Aces Over Europe, you played TIE Fighter. That was the
sure.
real first multiplayer games. So, yeah, they had a whole generation where we played inverted, and then Halo came around. I was like, I think it was the button configuration. Like, you did a certain way. It was like, it wasn't inverted, but it was like, okay, this makes more sense. I think it's where the melee was like the you pushed R3 down, so it's like you literally did like this and you meleeed somebody,
And there was
like,
one
okay, I'm gonna
layout
start
where
playing this
you
way.
push forward. Layout where you pushed forward on the left thumbstick to go forward, but you could strafe with the right one, and for
Yes.
ever reason for like Halo 1, I did that, and then at some point during Halo 2 or Halo 3 I switched because either that wasn't available anymore or something. Just never went back. So I always would free look on the right stick, and now I can't think of playing without that. But there are some crazy configurations that are out there, so I'm never gonna like throw
Halo-
shade at Merc for playing inverted.
No, Halo legitimately played the way, or changed the way I played video games. Because I can't remember. I mean,
Sure.
it was just like, wait, I can do this. This makes more sense for me the way I play. Because, oh, imagine that. Yeah, I used to melee a lot in Halo, to the shock of no one.
Yeah, Halo was a game changer for I think literally everyone, but I think specifically for the console first-person shooter thing. Because I mean, before that, the only console shooter that we had that was any good was GoldenEye, and it was a very basic aiming system comparatively, because people thought that you couldn't do precision aiming with thumbsticks. They literally thought it was impossible. So obviously, Halo's
Right.
contribution was aim assist. Which now is like their secret sauce, right? Like that's what makes all their stuff go really, really great on console, is that they've perfected how aim assist works. I ended up catching on to it, and that helped them. But I mean, prior to Halo, people were literally like, "You're never going to be able to make a good console shooter because you're not going to ever make it feel good to aim with thumbsticks."
So,
Right.
wait, this is going to sound stupid, I could think, but ask this anyway. At Bungie, when you were there, does the history of the company come up a lot, or do they just push it down and they go, everything is Destiny all the time? Like, if you guys are having a conversation in the office, if you brought up Halo or what was it, Myth or Oni or any of the other games, is that still a thing, or has Bungie moved on from that so far that it's not even talked about?
No, it's very, very important to the company.
Okay.
I
This is
mean,
a question
they
somebody asked me
have-
earlier to ask you.
They have posters, and they have posters and memorabilia from every single game they've ever built, very, very visible in the company. And a lot of conversations when we were sitting in meetings would be, well, I really like this about, or I thought this progression system was great, or I thought this felt great, or this didn't work in that game back then. Why would you think it's going to work now? Stuff like that. It was not by any stretch of the imagination or in the history of what Bungie has done in the past is very, very much a contributing factor to what they're doing now and what they will continue to do.
Okay. So
There, and Christopher Barrett's been there since Myth. So
second part of the
That's a good
question
point.
that I was asked to ask you. Was that little hut in D1 that looked like the Master Chief's helmet really an homage to the Master Chief?
I actually didn't ask that. I don't know, but I would assume that yes, it was, because nothing they do is unintentional, right? Like,
More importantly,
in
is
the
the Destiny
game,
logo
if there's-
junk?
That was part 3 of the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna shut up now. Continue.
Putting the unfiltered in Destiny.
we need a logo that looks like Master Chief's, basically. Yeah, and that was a good joke.
Enough.
All
Right here
right.
first, folks.
So if anybody has any questions in the chat, put them out there now as we're getting ready to start wrapping this up.
There, no lie. Everybody's playing Shadowkeep. There's nobody in the chat tonight.
We
This
are.
is not
Man.
true, but
I'm gonna go play Shadowkeep, so I can
Right.
guarantee you that.
Yeah. Before
Especially
we
now
let
that
you
queues are done.
go. So when I was talking about the breakdown earlier, this was a segue. So when you saw the armor system, when you logged in, you saw all these numbers and the new perks and the mods that are, forever now. To a guy like you, what kind of, how do you even perceive that? Because I know math has to be going through your head in some regard, where it's like, okay, so like you immediately have to start thinking, it's like, okay, so how many points do I have to put here, and then how can I move this around? Like, I just want to know what goes on in your head when you see new shit like that.
So the first thing I think of is that I absolutely love it, because I thought for a long time that Bungie needed to lean harder into the RPG of Destiny, and I thought the more stats that they gave us, the better. The second thing that I start looking at is, I think, how satisfying is this system going to be? Like, how much control over the way I'm going to start modifying my character. And I think that Armor 2.0 is a great start. Seeing intellect, discipline, strength, and all those things. And I love seeing the cooldowns, and it makes my job a heck of a lot easier to not have to go in and time everything in the game, right? I also look at what's annoying about the system, which is there still is, in terms of the armor stat rolls that you get, and like much fun chasing tier 12 was in D1, annoying chasing tier 12 was in D1, because you didn't actually have any control over what it is that you were doing. And the thing that RPGs is they let you build your own character. We're at a really great point where we're definitely at a place than we ever had in Destiny's history in terms of letting me build my own character. But at the same time, I think some frustrations are going to pop up with the fact that there's still a pretty heavy layer of RNG distribution.
Shadowkeep just took him out.
Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say Merc just entered. Merc just entered the singularity, dude. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, oh,
He's in the queue for the
we're
podcast.
going bionic.
Merc just roboted out. It's fine. Wait.
He is frozen like hell on that screen.
He's gone totally Walt Disney.
But he looks very thoughtful.
Rick, do we have Twitter questions?
Very thoughtful.
Or
We have
nothing? All right. I was going to do the final 5 tonight, but I'm wondering...
You probably skip that unless he comes back. Hold on, let's see.
Let's... So, real quick...
He's done. Wait.
Well, we'll give him... I wanted to
Did
bring
I
up
get dropped?
something...
You guys.
I wanted to bring up something while we're waiting for him to come back anyway.
I'm back.
He goes, damn, did I get dropped? I said a bit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what...
That's Comcast for you.
While we're waiting...
I'm sorry, dude. Oh, God bless.
While we were kind of waiting
let's
for
do
him to
that.
get back in and stable up, wanted to
He's
thank
back.
everybody on Twitter this week too, because my second grandson was born this week, and we got a lot of DMs and private messages and shit. And thank you guys for all the well wishes. So, Had a little 8.5 pound baby grandson this week.
Good looking boy.
Yeah, big old fat kid.
Awesome, man.
Looks just like his daddy. So, all right. So looks like we're
Big guy.
ready to roll out of here. So we're gonna do our final 5 questions for the night. This is
Okay.
all towards our guest.
No. I got to do a thing after the fatal 5, and then
Whatever.
you can do that.
Do you want to do your thing first?
Sure.
All right, do your thing.
Folks, we have a Patreon. What is Patreon, you ask? It's a place where you can go and shower us with monetary gifts towards our goal. What is our goal? Is to spread unfiltered message to all, which is, doesn't matter how big you are, no matter how small you are, fact is you deserve to have a voice. And the way that we're going to facilitate that is by being at GCX this year and, getting a table. We'll do it, like, basically make that a event within an event. So if you're at GCX, you create content, or you just want to hang out, we want our table to be the place where you go. So the way we're doing it, you can go out there, get some exclusive perks on Patreon, different exclusive things that we're going to be doing. You can give it different levels to get that. And the way to get there is to go to patreon.com/DestinyUnfiltered or destinyunfiltered.com/Patreon so that you can be a part of something really special. And if you have questions, all you got to do is go to destinyunfiltered.com and look at all of our social links there and ask us all the questions in the world, including things for our guests, which is how this stuff runs. Those of you that have already or support in any way, whether it be here on Twitch, on Twitter, or on Patreon, thank you. You keep the show running.
He's so good at that, bro. It's like
Yeah, like he's sold his ass
amazing.
before.
he has. He was in.
Hey, man, look, you hired me for a reason. Love him. So,
Okay. All right,
Wait,
so
wait.
we got 5
We
final
hired?
questions for you tonight, Merc, and then we'll get the hell
the
out of here.
pitch got my ass.
So, what is your favorite food, assuming that you're not frozen again? Jesus Christ, I think he's...
Cheese. If I'm not frozen again. Honestly.
Wrong choice.
If I'm not frozen,
crazy.
it's cheese. Well, if you are
I
frozen,
respect
what is
cheese.
it?
It's still cheese, but I'm frozen, so.
Awesome.
Fair enough.
All right, favorite drink? Alcoholic and or non-alcoholic?
Rye whiskey is my favorite drink that's alcoholic. Non-alcoholic would be water. I don't drink anything that's non-alcoholic that's not water, so.
Right on, dude.
Whiskey and rye.
We're gonna game together. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the two of you sound very similar. What is your dream job?
Go back and work at Bungie, but not as a tester. I'd like to do production for them. So that's what I'm working towards right now. We'll see if it ends up happening.
Yeah.
Favorite guilty pleasure game, movie, music that you don't normally tell people about?
I mean, my guilty pleasure is Destiny, because I don't normally tell the vast majority of people that are out of the gaming community about it, and I spend more time playing this than anything else by far. I literally, definitely Destiny, but I don't kind of fit in with the top we're doing, so.
He is a
Apparently, I've been
closet
doing real
listener.
life wrong.
Apparently,
like anyone who will
Comcast is
listen
like-
about Destiny.
Apparently, Comcast is like, fuck his guilty pleasure.
Oh, dude, Comcast is shit. I don't even care. Fucking find me. I live with that fucking albatross around my goddamn neck for 3 motherfucking years because there was no alternative. Fuck them.
All right.
Fucking Comcast, man.
Clip
This internet just continuously fucks me all the time. I despise Comcast, but
All right, Jimmy, you got
there's
the
nothing
final
better in the
question?
area. So
Do your thing.
Yeah. You being the kind of guy that is heavy into numbers, you look at the time to kill stuff all the time. That's where, like, that's your wheelhouse. So, if there were a weapon type you could bring into Destiny that does not currently exist, TTK in mind as a concept, what kind of weapon would you bring in and why?
I would bring in a railgun, which would be a kinetic version of a fusion rifle, kind of like the Arbalest, except for it actually be like a fusion rifle. It would shoot a spread of bolts, not just one single bolt. I actually don't think the TTK
The
in
look
Destiny
on Rick's
is.
face as he's having all kinds of happy
Yeah.
thoughts right now.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with that.
Yeah. So, imagine Aerosol, but it uses kinetic ammo, and it's wonderful. I mean, I don't think the TTK in Destiny. I think it's in a good range, which the range that I think is the best is 0.67 seconds to 1.00 seconds. I think the 2/3 of a second to 1 second range is where everything needs to sit. So it would probably be somewhere in there, depending on how great the actual like kill distance was. So the longer optimal range you have, the slower the time to kill needs to be. Because if you have something that can kill at 100 meters in half a second, then it's what's going to be used by basically everyone. So imagine Aerosol, but as a kinetic, and it kills in about 0.87 seconds. And you've got just my ultimate weapon that I would bring in tomorrow if I had a magic button to click.
Nice. I like that answer. And the thing is, I was impressed by the answer, but I was more impressed by you. You didn't even take a beat. You're just like,
No, he's
Okay.
thought about this.
I've had a lot of time to think about
He's
this.
probably got a drawing of the shit
Love it,
in
dude.
the house somewhere.
All I'm saying
There's
is
a
we're gonna see
schematic.
how the dragons, whatever it is, that heavy bow works.
yeah.
Because when we were talking about Wishender at Bungie while we were there, we were like, well, this is going to be the hardest exotic we've ever had to get in game up until this point. So it needs to be really, really fucking good. And we were talking about ways to make it good, and I was like, honest to God, make it a heavy weapon and make it one-shot kill to the body. And you just pick up like 2 to 3 bolts, and it's basically sleeper simulant, but it's a bow. And they were like, no, that's too out there, that's too out there. I was like, fine, make it a special weapon and make it kill to the head. And they were like, no, we can't do that either. Like, that would really upset the balance of the thing.
Bungie's coming for his ass. You see this, right?
Yes. No, man. It's
I
Activision.
think
It's all
they're
Activision.
DDoSing Merc anytime he has something interesting to say. They're just like,
It's okay. We have audio backup. Go with it.
could be Activision tossing him too, you know?
Why would Activision give a shit?
I mean, they got nothing
Don't
really
know.
going on right now. I mean,
So,
My girlfriend's watching Netflix or Hulu or something and just ruining all my bandwidth. So I think I'm
Fair,
surprised we
fair.
made it as long through as we did before I started getting kicked off.
hey Rick,
Oh,
why don't
fuck
we
it, let's
just
wrap it up.
let's just land this plane and get the
Alright,
hell
I got
out of
it.
here.
all right. Sun's getting low. Sun's getting low. Okay. For those of you on audio, we didn't pull it off again, and you don't know what we're talking about anyway. This is fine. So, Merc.
You may didn't pull it off. I put my hand up.
It's fine. Fuck it. We'll work on it. We'll practice. People who don't know where you are in the sound of my voice, if they want to find you on the interwebs, what are your links, sir?
Mercules 904 on pretty much everything. Xbox, Twitter, Discord, Reddit, Mercules 904. It's Hercules, but with an M in front. So it's not Mercules, which is what people seem to think it is more often than not, which is weird. But it is Mercules. And if they want to listen to our podcast, it is Destiny Massive Breakdowns. We are available everywhere podcasts are sold. So Apple Podcast, Podbean, literally everything. Just Google Destiny Massive Breakdowns, you should find it. We also, if you want the weapon stat spreadsheet, go to destinymassivebreakdowns.com and you can find the weapon stat spreadsheet there, and you can download yourself a copy and start figuring out which gun is best for you.
And then instead of me having to talk for 20 minutes, Jim was nice enough to build us a website. Go to destiny.com. Everything is there.
We're not on
So,
True
Destiny.com.
story.
DestinyUnfiltered.com. Whatever.
There you go.
Bygones. That's why you do show notes. Shoot.
All right, it's time to turn this shit
Edibles are
off.
kicking in. Anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much
Sorry.
for joining us this evening.
Thank you,
Listen
Mercules.
Audio. We appreciate you, Merc. Thank you so much for being here. It's truly a pleasure, and I appreciate it so much.
And
Thank you guys for having me. I'm sorry that bowling took so long, and I'm sorry that my internet is complete and utter shit. So
Comcast.
This is fine. We're usually drunk, so this is above par. We're fine.
It's a step up, dude.
Okay, well, we're all usually drunk, so just me. This is fine too. Next week's gonna be a little weird. Dan Drumstone. So, bring your boogie shoes. I have no idea how much gaming stuff is going to go on there, and I'm just noticing that my eyes are interacting with my green screen, and it's completely screwing with me. But that being said, thank you to everyone. We will catch you next week live and Unfiltered. Have a good night.